And I'm really curious if there aren't a hell of a lot more of us out there in this profession that are suffering these same challenges. And unless we start talking about it, and this is as a chief, former chief, now retired, right? Laying it all on the line, because if it's going to help somebody else, I need to be raw. And that's why I'm here for this one.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Blah, Blah, Blah Something Wellness podcast. We have been talking about addiction, alcohol, and recovery this month, and we are going to still continue that conversation, but we're going to steer away a little bit from the alcohol, still talking on it, but we're going to open it up to some other addictions that people might be dealing with. And I am joined by my awesome team of people that are I'm going to have you guys all introduce yourselves. And when you introduce yourselves, just kind of talk on the addiction piece that you are each going to be speaking on. So we kind of have that awareness. With that said, I am your host, Tami Sharp, and I'm going to start with Ken. We'll do Badgley, and then we'll do Cory.
Great. Thanks for having me, Tami. Ken Koch. I've been with law enforcement coaching basically from the inception, going on 3 years now. Really enjoy working in the coaching realm, in these podcasts, taking part in these conversations because they are so important. Very briefly, I've got a 35 plus year career in law enforcement, working on both the sworn and civilian side. Did the majority of my career in Northern Arizona in Flagstaff, spent a little time in Taos, New Mexico, and then finished up the sworn side here in Colorado. My last 4 years in the profession, I was a civilian running a regional law enforcement training center, serving more than 35 agencies throughout northern Colorado.
Thank you. Mike.
Hi, well, I'm Mike Badgley. I am one of the newest members of law enforcement coaching, and I served 5 years on the Marine Corps Infantry and Officer Program, and then also was in law enforcement for 5 years before getting shot at for too little money and decided to go into the corporate industry. Did that for 10 years, ended up more trauma from that than getting shot at. Funny story. And then ended up in suicide prevention and mental health. And the discussion I'm going to be talking about is opiates. And the reason why is getting injured while on the job and trying to push through, and what happens when they tell you can't get addicted to these pills. Funny story. So that's who I am. Look forward to talking about it.
Awesome. Thank you. Cory.
My name is Cory Sack. I've been with law enforcement coaching since the beginning. Come to you with 20 years law enforcement experience, currently 17 years sworn and 3.5 civilian. And I'll be talking about alcohol, and I think we can also touch, I guess we can also touch on opiates briefly in my experience with injury recovery as well.
Okay, awesome. Yes. So with that, these conversations are so meaningful and powerful, and I just want to thank you guys for being willing to share some of your story. I'm going to start, Badgley, I'm going to have you start with yours and talk about the opiates, and we'll kind of circle around. Because I'm curious too, because you mentioned it in the previous podcast, but you did military, you did law enforcement, but then when you were out, that's when your real trauma kind of hit in. So will you unpack that for me so I have an understanding of all of that?
Well, yeah. So kind of the timeline actually blends together. So I ended up getting hurt in the Marine Corps pretty severely. That's how I ended up getting out. At the time, I didn't take any painkillers. You know, Marines, you're supposed to be tough. And so rolling into law enforcement, I was doing the job as much best as I could and ended up hurting my back again. And at that point, once I hurt my back, I hurt it bad enough that it was like, oh my gosh, I've never felt pain like this before. I need something for this. So go to a clinic, and this is at that point in time where they're telling you, hey, you can't get addicted to opiates. You're going to be fine. This is going to be great for long-term pain. And if anybody's been through this before, realizing when anybody says opiates and long-term, that is always a bad thing. And sure enough, I was on them for 8 years. And what was interesting is that part of that transition was that time out of law enforcement and then into the insurance industry. And that addiction carried through. And it was interesting to see how I wasn't addicted for the first 4 years of taking them. It was actually full on. I was doing it the correct way. Those last 4 years, no, it was game over. Those opiates, they replace our own internal dopamine, and our body will lie to us. Our minds lie to us. When I actually finally got off, I'm kind of jumping ahead on this, I thought I was going to be in excruciating pain. I was in significantly less pain than I ever expected. It just shows the power of these drugs and how they're doing that. But it really, what I started to realize is that addiction was that coping mechanism, was that trauma, that stress that I was not addressing or finding a way to process it in a healthy manner. And so that became a quick and easy escape. And it was one of those that I literally wasn't even paying attention. It was like I was just doing this and I wasn't even thinking of the consequences until it stares you in the face. And usually when it comes to opiates, you're losing everything. You could lose your job, you could lose your family. And thank God that didn't happen, but I was at the edge. And we talked about in the other podcast, it led me to the brink of suicide. And that one of the big points was quitting the opiates and realizing that how much it had changed my body chemistry and how much it lied to me. Because what happened, it changed my personality. I was not a happy-go-lucky guy. I was always down. I was always sad. Like, it was very fascinating that had happened. So I'm grateful for those experiences now because it helped me grow. But I can tell you it was a horrific experience. And it's one of those things where I got on because I got hurt. I just wanted to keep doing the job, keep performing. This was never an intent that I was trying to do this to be malicious or bad guy. Just like a lot of other guys out there. And it's interesting working some of the tier 1 operators in the military. Over 50% of the operators are addicted to pills of some kind. And it's like, it's that high performance drive where you're trying to fight your way forward, not realizing we're human and we have to take our breaks and make sure we're attending to our injuries so we can get healing.
Well, and you touched on so many important parts, but specifically for our law enforcement and first responder community that's listening, one, when you see somebody that's in active addiction, it's super easy to judge and be like, well, how they get whatever. If you haven't been there, you don't necessarily understand how freaking easy it is to get there, especially when it starts as a real injury, real pain, and a legal prescription from an authority figure, a doctor in a white coat that has that authority figure saying, this is what you need to get through this. And then you get those pills into you. And it, like you said, it tricks the brain. It tricks the body to feel pain when it's phantom pain. It's no longer there. It's one of the reasons that we have such a strong problem with addiction across the board. And, the sad thing is when you have that addiction, if for some reason you lose your job, your insurance, or whatever, you still have the addiction. So you may not have the legal prescription, but by God, you are going to find out how to fill that need. And that's where we end up with good first responders, good officers now on the street, and they're, crackheads or whatever. And it's like, how did that happen? Well, it was more common and easy than you would actually think. So thank you for sharing that. Cory, do you want to talk a little bit about yours? You had your injury recovery.
Yeah, mine was no near as long as Mike's. 8 years. Mine was very, I would say, short-lived, I guess. But it's recurring because of my ongoing surgeries. But I remember I was shot in the line of duty and shattered my femur and my right ankle. Went into the ER, the trauma center, and there's just a room full of people. And I remember looking at the nurse and telling her, as they're setting up IVs, I was like, hey, FYI, I was like, I don't want no pain meds. I'm going to do this without meds. And she tapped me on the shoulder and she's like, sweetheart, you're way beyond that already. I was already loaded up. But right away, and it goes into my story that night when I was in the ICU, I was high as a kite. And my wife walks in and she's in tears, and I'm telling her a story about how our nurse has a daughter that's in the same kindergarten class as ours, and this is great, and the recovery's going to be fine. And it kind of really took me out of that reality. But I remember being in the hospital and then being at home and taking that nightly Percocet, and that was, I'd write letters, my thank you letters, and I remember looking back and how that was so calming and soothing for me. But looking forward, it was always something that was in conversation with my doctors. They're like, do you need more? And I was honest with them. So I was on it for 5 months, but whether you're on it for a week or for a few months or for years, you're going to have some kind of withdrawal. And my withdrawal was being unable to sleep, because that was in my system when I was going to bed, because it was the end of the day, and that's when I was experiencing my pain and trying to go to bed. So it was probably 3, 4, 5 weeks of restless nights. Luckily I was not very mobile, so I couldn't go out and do anything. I really just had to sit there and stew in my mind, but I could see someone who is capable and might know where to get something, might go out of their way to go do that. So I think I was lucky to be in the fact that maybe I wasn't very mobile. I was in a wheelchair for a while, and a walker, and I wasn't able to drive. So maybe that helped. But yeah, it can be long nights when you can't sleep. That's for sure.
And you just queued Ken up. So you're going to talk about sleep, right, Ken?
Yeah, so I didn't introduce my topic. I apologize at the beginning, but a lot of times I see these podcasts and even the ones that we've done recently for law enforcement coaching, where you have guys come on who tell their story, and like we're going to be doing here today, and they talk about how it started, what they experienced when they went through it, and how they got to the finish line in recovery, right? Well, I've always believed that this law enforcement coaching trip is something I'm passionate about because I want to help people who are still in the profession. And sometimes that means you got to get raw. So I'm the guy that's here today telling you I'm in the middle of the journey and I haven't found the promised land yet. I'm self-medicating regularly because I can't sleep at night. And when I don't drink alcohol, I will lay in bed literally from 9:30 to 1 o'clock in the morning. No TV on, no distractions, lights off, nothing that should be stimulating the mind, and I simply cannot fall asleep. And yet, when I self-medicate with alcohol, I am asleep within 15, 20 minutes. And I honestly don't know what the brain chemistry is that's going on with that. Um, but how I got there was what was so sneaky. Because bottom line, like most of us in this career field, I think you start off as a young cop and you have the choir practice after shift, right? And that turns into just on swing shift because you go home at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's probably not time to have a beer with the buds. But if you get off at 10 or 11, yeah, choir practice is great. Well, then it morphed into getting off graveyard at 8 o'clock in the morning and going over to a buddy's house for choir practice at 8 a.m. Watching a 3-hour hockey game that he had recorded the night before, and the whole squad is there, having beers and watching a hockey game. You go home about 12 o'clock and you go to sleep, get your sleep in before your next shift, right? Um, for me, it was alcohol every once in a while, every now and again. And then it slowly morphed into alcohol again and again and again. Um, and somehow, somewhere along the way, it turned into I can't sleep if I don't. So I'm going to have a couple so I can get a good night's sleep tonight. And I'd be painfully honest with you. If I felt I had a problem, as far as an addiction with alcohol, I'd be the first to reach out for help. I can go 3, 4, 5 days without drinking. I have no side effects. I don't, none of that kind of stuff. No withdrawals, no cravings. I simply get exhausted because I might get 2 hours of sleep a night. And I'm really curious if there aren't a hell of a lot more of us out there in this profession that are suffering these same challenges. And unless we start talking about it, and this is as a former chief, now retired, right? Laying it all on the line because if it's going to help somebody else, I need to be raw. And that's why I'm here for this one.
Well, thank you. Super appreciate you being here for that and being open because, yeah, the reality is the majority, I believe, from our experience of what we've seen, the majority of first responders are on, if it's not alcohol, it's some form of sleep aid. When we first started going and doing trainings, we would actually, have everybody do a show of hands of how many people are on sleep aid. We've stopped doing that because it's typically 80% of the room that is on some form of sleep aid. And whether it's alcohol or Ambien or whatever that is, and every single thing has its own two sides of a sword because yes, you might sleep, but with particular, and I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get sued, but there are certain sleep medications that really do create amnesia. You can get up, you can be, doing all sorts of stuff. I believe temporary insanity is a real thing because there are people that have done things, have no recollection, and they were on a sleep aid. And that is very, very true. I've seen it firsthand. And the sad thing with alcohol is, yeah, it's super effective. Like Mike Martinez that was on a previous episode, when he was involved in OISs and he had a headache that wouldn't go away, the only thing that he found that worked was alcohol. And sleep, as we all know, is the best of the best. I mean, everybody in the world, we have watched fancy PhDs on stage talk about, this is what you can do for sleep and this, but even that, it's like, it's not realistic or applicable for military, law enforcement, fire, and it's not just the schedule. I used to own a bar. I worked until, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't go to bed until 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock. I lived on Maui. The sun would come up, the roosters up Eau Valley would go. I could hear the roosters, and that was my notice of it's time to go to bed. I had blackout curtains, I had white noise, I had fan, I had everything. So my bedroom, I could sleep, and I would sleep. So it's not that it's the shift that is affecting, it's everything else that comes with the shift that is keeping your guys' minds going. So we got a lot to unpack because I know that with the sleep one, maybe we'll figure something out that'll help. I will say too, I always say that I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, but I try not to talk too much about hypnosis because just getting cops to talk about their feelings has enough stigma that we don't need to bring in hypno. First, disclaimer, we're not making you cluck like a chicken or do any of the Vegas shows, but clinical hypnotherapy is actually very good. Meditation, all of that kind of stuff. And I don't have the reference to cite it right now, but I have been trained that a good 45 minutes of deep hypnosis is equivalent to 4 hours of REM. So I can do more due diligence on that and also try to help a little bit more with that for those that are interested. Ken, you're going to be my guinea pig.
That's why I'm here.
There you go. So with the sleep, let's talk about that for everybody. Because yes, the addiction is one thing, but the sleep is a huge part of the addiction as well. So, where all of you guys all have sleep problems, right? Okay. Making sure I'm tracking the right. So let me ask you guys this first. Do you guys have the problem falling asleep? Ken, you said yes. You guys have the problem falling asleep? Is it you can fall asleep, but then you wake up? Where are you guys at with your sleep?
That's where I'm at. I can easily fall asleep, but I don't stay asleep. And once I'm up, I'm up.
Okay. Cory, for you?
Same with me. I can fall asleep, but I'm up and down, for a good couple hours before I'm out.
Okay. And then Ken, you're having a hard time falling once you fall asleep?
Once I'm asleep, I think we all have that 2, 3 o'clock in the morning wake up thing, in the middle of the night. Once I'm asleep, I usually get a pretty good night's sleep. Without the alcohol on board, when I do eventually fall asleep, it is a very, very light sleep, and I just don't feel like I got any true rest.
Okay. There's so many different facets because not only do you guys have the law enforcement, but I said this, I went on a soapbox tangent in another episode, but hormones are a big thing. And I know, Badgley, you were on that episode. Your hormones, you were crying that week, and you have the hormone panel of a 9-year-old girl, and that's what we. I remember that.
It's fun.
So where are you guys at with your have you had your hormones checked? Do you know where you guys are at with your hormones?
No.
Welcome. This is Ken's coaching session. Because I'm giving you homework. So you need to get your hormone panel checked to see where you're at with it, because I promise you, and Mike can talk on it too, hormones are absolutely they're just a factor. If you're late 30s and over, your hormones, whoever's listening, need to check in with your hormones. Females we're all, and I keep saying I'm not a fan, this whole perimenopause thing is bullshit. But we're in it. And then the guys are dealing with the testosterone. So I'll repeat myself for this one. So the thing with first responders, men specifically, you go through 20 plus years of your career in fight or flight, ready to go, and you are on all the time. Your mind is on, your body is on. Everything is ready to go all the time. And then you retire and everything relaxes. Now, what nobody's really, I don't think they're talking about it enough, is the adrenal fatigue, the testosterone dump. And then you have the age to factor in, which even if you weren't a first responder, you're going to have a testosterone dump. So that's the other thing. Not only are officers operating on sleep aids, but when we surveyed people too, a lot of men are on the T-shot. Whether they actually need it or they just think it's like a little bit of extra juice, a lot of guys are operating on the T-shot. And if you don't have that dosage right, it can affect you. You can have basically roid rage, where you're just short-circuited, short-fused, you're pissed off all the time, you don't know why you're angry all the time. You need to check where you're at with that. Cory, how about you? Where are you at with your hormones?
Well, I get my blood checked every 6 months and we go over it. But now it makes me, I know that I'm in a range, right? But that's all I know. So I need to look at the level. I'll go back and I just had it checked last week. So
Okay.
all I know is I was in range.
Okay. So, I mean, this is an addiction topic. I am letting everybody know that we put June's monthly topic is all sleep. So it all gives us some time to practice it, to see Ken's going to come back, see if he's sleeping better by then. We got some time to work on it. I know that people are listening, being like, June, that's months away. I need to sleep now. Well, reach out to us. We'll do like our own first responder sleep study. I don't know. We make shit up as we go. Let's figure out something that works, because nothing's working. So that's my little 2 cents on that. I want to unpack some of that more, but also let's go back into the addiction a little bit. So, Ken, you have with the drinking, how are you guys with, okay, wait, too much. Okay. Cory, are you completely sober? Are you still able to have a drink?
No, it's weird. I don't drink at all. But I'll have a few dreams once in a long while that I have a beer, and that's acceptable. But then, during my normal day in practice, I'm like, you don't drink. That's not acceptable. But I've had recent conversations with friends. Let's see, I'll be 9 years sober this next coming Father's Day. But
Congratulations.
I've had the conversation with my buddies. Like, I am so happy I don't drink. I can be around it. I have booze in my house. I got vodka that we cook with. I got beer there for my dad, but I have no desire. And that's just where I was with my drinking. So, and I've seen the benefits of it, and not being, that lifestyle. So, it took a number of years, and I still have realizations here and there 9 years later. So, it's amazing. I enjoy the journey. I like being sober. And I'm happy to say that that's where I am.
When you just brought up, so you have dreams about, I gotta find this. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it fast. So, of course. Okay, wait, hold on for the listeners. Bear with me. I have a book and I'll show you guys what the book is. Okay. So this is a book that I like to bring with me to things. It is, I believe, out of print, but it's called Constant Cravings, A through Z. And it brings the emotional component to whatever it is that you're craving in that moment. So beer, the desire to shut out anxiety, wanting more love, fun, and appreciation. So when you're having those dreams, or you're having that feeling of like, hey, I could really use a beer, checking in with yourself, and it's like, okay, are you having a little bit more anxiety at that time? Are you wanting more love, fun, and appreciation in that? And so you can do, so this one is more of a woo-woo book. So it has affirmations, and the affirmations for this is, I trust my inner source of strength to see me through the highs and lows. I allow myself a quiet time out for renewal. That one wasn't too woo. Some of them are super woo. But you can create,
very accurate.
Right?
Very accurate. Oh.
I love that book. I will put it in if you can still find it. Doreen Virtue is the one author of that one. Badgley, what about you? Period.
More.
All of it.
All of the above. Got to be a little more specific. I have lots of thoughts raging on this. Now, for me, my addiction, fortunately, after withdrawals, the process that I went through was 7 days of hell. It was horrific. And it was actually, I'm very happy. It was so bad. And I've even told friends, like, I would go back to boot camp 3 times over before I would ever go through that withdrawal process again. It was hell on earth. And because of the way the medical system is, they didn't have any support structure. It was, we want to get you on methadone. Like, no, I'm not replacing one addiction for another. So I made the call to quit cold turkey. And I did. I quit hardcore cold turkey and literally dropped myself off a cliff and was in active acute withdrawal within about an hour because I was a medication that I took that did that. Real fun. So anyways, that was very horrible, but fortunately after that, like, I had zero cravings. Ever since then, there's never been a desire or want to touch opiates. It's just like, no, I ain't playing that game. We're not going down that road again. And it was also not just that, it was the impact on what was going on around me, the impact on my family. Like, I almost lost my wife and child, through divorce. And it's like, this is something that I can't allow to happen. Like, my family means everything to me. So for me, it was like, I have to find a way to fight forward. So yeah, that's always kind of been a constant driver. I won't say I'm completely sober because I definitely have a drink every now and then, but I don't struggle with it. And the reason why is if I have one more like 1 or 2 drinks, my body will let me know, and I have severe symptoms. So it's like, that's something that self-regulation, I'm not worried about. But there's always that, the addictive personality. What if I'm getting addicted to even working out? That can become toxic. The addictive traits, it doesn't just release to substances. It can be many different things that become maladaptive. So I'm very aware of it and very conscious, but yeah, right now I'm doing pretty solid through recovery.
Well, I'm looking. I don't think I have it. It's not. Crap. I don't know where it's at on my bookshelf to find it quick enough, but that's a good point. So, and I mentioned this in a previous episode, but I want to reiterate. So, oftentimes when we think addiction, we immediately go to hard addiction. We go drugs, alcohol, and then we kind of think about porn, gambling, sex addiction, whatever these other hard addictions. But there are also soft addictions, and addiction is addiction. So if you have been, you got to be very careful, especially if you have had a harder addiction, to not replace it. I mean, it's good and bad. Would you rather be doing meth or working out and be addicted to working out? Well, obviously you want to take the healthier version and be working out, but also doing the inner healing, the continued healing work. Don't go from being a first responder that's I'm good, I'm fine, until you're not good, not fine, and then you get yourself out of it and then you go back to being fine. If you go back to being fine and you're not continuing the work, you're going to have more lessons come up the hard way. So you got to make sure that you're continuing to have the support system to be vulnerable, to talk about your story, especially with your coworkers, and you're, being careful, protecting your position, but helping inspire and motivate other people to not fall into the same pitfalls that so many people have fallen into. I really just appreciate you guys being so open with everything. When we talk about the soft addiction, because I want to unpack a few things, because of course my brain's going in all different ways because I also want to help. So, do you guys think it's possible that you guys, the high functioning, you're already kind of addicted to just performance in itself. You're addicted to performance. You're addicted to perfectionism, doing a good job. I mean, look, I'm going to call myself out because I have a whole bunch of certificates and I'm not done. I like paper. I like I like challenging myself. And so maybe that's a little bit of a soft addiction of constantly just not being in, okay, I did good enough. I want to be better. I want to be better. Chasing. I think a lot of us are in that mindset, which also I think goes back into the sleep because our brains do not know how to shut off. So maybe there's also a little bit of an addiction component to the chaos, I guess, for lack of a better word, of the drama, the stress of it. Bear with me. I'm just like I'm just trying to figure it all out.
Absolutely.
I'll say my first gateway drug was adrenaline.
I'm kind of in that area of wanting to collect paper right now too. So when I did quit drinking and had this time to fill, and I didn't really necessarily want to fill it with work, I found myself going back to school. So I did. I got my bachelor's degree, and now I'm in the middle of the chaos of a graduate program. So, no, definitely, I think you brought up the perfect word for that, which was chaos. I just finished a class last Friday, and to wake up Saturday and I was like, I'm chaos free right now. It felt very different. So it's replacing one thing with another. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to let you talk in a second. um, chaos free. What do you do when you are chaos free and the world is quiet and it's peace, but you're not used to peace? Because a lot of us are always in that mindset of, well, it's good for now, but when's the shoe going to drop? And you get to these good things, like everything in my life is going great. Something bad's going to happen. It's bound to happen. It always happens. Or if you're waiting, some people, that's where self-sabotage comes in, because your life is freaking good and you're happy and it's so uncomfortable and so new that instead of leaning into it and learning how to strengthen it, you blow it up because you believe that shit always happens. And shit does not always happen. We go through shit in life. There's always going to be struggle and challenge. We're human. But you also get to be in control of what kind of struggle and what kind of challenge you want. So somebody that's dealing with financial instability, would you like the struggle and challenge of being broke and not being able to pay for your bills or afford anything? Or do you want the struggle and challenge that comes with running a business and figuring out where money's coming from so that you can be abundant? I take the latter. It is not easy being a business owner. It's stressful. I never know where money's coming from, but I'd way rather have that problem than I've been broke. I've been very broke where I didn't even know if I could put gas in my car. I drove a stick shift and I'm like, well, if I pop it into neutral, I can cruise down the hill and I know where I can get to the gas station and then put $5 in, right? I had that problem. I don't like that. I'd way rather know where I'm going to go get another contract with a PD or grant money or whatever, right? So we can choose our struggles. So with the chaos, I think we've talked about this in another episode as well, is when you unplug or disconnect from something negative, you have to find something else to plug into, or else you're just going to pull in more chaos and more drama from somewhere else. So if you are unplugging and disconnecting from chaos, you need to figure out something that is happy, joy, peaceful, the feeling that you want to have, and plug into that and start learning, again, muscle memory. You are training your neural pathways in your brain to go from being over in this way. It's going to take conscious effort to build that muscle memory to focus on the peace and be okay with the peace, sitting with it. You have to sit through the discomfort of the peace in order to actually enjoy the peace. That makes sense? Okay. Ken, how about you?
Yeah, I would just share that, when it comes to addiction, my first experience with addiction was when I was a teenager. I started chewing tobacco, and nicotine, right, is supposedly one of the most addictive substances out there. And I can tell you, it was hard to stop, but I did stop. I chewed for probably 15 years from the time I was 15 to about 30. But I did eventually come off of it. I experienced the withdrawals. I know what that kind of pain is like and how hard that is. Um, but the other addictions that you guys have talked to, Mike and Cory, you as well, believe me, I was the guy who would never take sleeping pills, pain pills. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I was also the guy who was addicted to working out. Anybody who knows me and has known me for a long time has heard me make the statement, I work out like a fiend so I can drink like a fish. And it was meant as a joke, but truly deep down, when I got deep into why I make statements like that, that was really the truth behind it. I started doing century bike rides, riding 110, 115 miles in races. I did the Leadville Trail 100 in 2009, rode a bike for 9 hours and 45 minutes and climbed over 13,000 feet. I did all of this stuff where I was in fantastic shape, but I was self-medicating with the alcohol at the same time, and I thought it was balancing things out, right? And that's what over time contributed to where I find myself today, where I just simply can't sleep if I don't have a couple of drinks before I go to bed. Um, so the lesson there is for me, recognize you're making excuses, first of all, when you have those softer addictions. And if you decide it's time to quit, if you decide it's time to change, then recognize it's not going to be an easy trip. There is no easy way around it, right? I'm in the process of searching for that solution, if you will. And I know I'm going to get there eventually. It's just a question of how. And my hope is that others who might be listening to this podcast and are making the same choices in order to get a good night's sleep, that we will all come to understand, look, there's a solution out there. There is a solution out there. And to the conversation you were having earlier, I 100% agree, man. I was the guy I was hitting my full stride when I was in the middle of the chaos. From the time I was 18 years old to the time I retired, I was in one uniform or another, special forces in the military, right into law enforcement, SWAT, the whole 9 yards. I was the adrenaline junkie, supreme, uber, class A personality, right? But I am now unplugged, to your point, Tami, because I'm retired. And there are days where I sit around the house and I don't do anything, and I love every minute of it. No chaos whatsoever. I've found other distractions, right? I've shared with other podcasts some of the things I'm doing on the side now in the artistic realm, which I never thought would be associated with me. But I'm loving it, right? So there are replacements you have to find to fill the void, but it's okay to just sit and be quiet as well. And sometimes I think that's hard for us to understand and to learn.
Okay, so well, one, I was giggling because you're gonna figure out the solution, and now that you got me in there, yeah. Put me on speed dial because I'm gonna be bugging you a bunch. So, no, but I want to talk about too, because you just brought up a good point. One of the things that you're doing to channel your energy is the creative stuff. You are doing different artistic projects and creative projects and whatnot. Here, really quick, I'll let you go through your list. You're doing blacksmithing, stained glass. What else are you doing?
Well, I've learned how to weld in association with the blacksmithing and the forging. Matter of fact, this Christmas was all handmade presents from my family. So that kept me really busy from about June until 2 weeks ago when I finished the last of the projects. It's been an interesting journey, right? I was never the arts guy. If I tried anything artistic, it looked like a fifth grader or a third grader did it, and only a mother could love, right? But for some reason, I've just really taken to this new challenge and these things I'm doing, and it's really rewarding. I got to tell you.
Awesome.
I love that. And so for the listeners too, especially the adrenaline junkies, and it's not just the adrenaline, but also the hormone part. So I am going to go woo finally. Yay. I'm going to talk about chakras. I always say we're not going to talk about, but we are. So crash course in chakras really quick for those that don't know. So your root chakra is red, and that is kind of your grounding into the earth, your feet up until just, your upper legs, basically. That is your root that is bringing you into earth. So if you are feeling yourself spinning out and having all of these thoughts, and this is all going to go into sleep, you can all try it. I don't know if any of it's going to work, but what you guys are doing isn't working. So you might as well frigging go touch grass, as the kids say these days. So literally go outside. If it's too cold, have a plant or rocks or something of earth in your house that you can put your hands into, or you can hold on to a rock. One of the reasons that people like crystals so much isn't just because of the energetic properties, but because it's earth and you can hold on to that and it's grounding you. That's your root chakra. Then you go into your sacral. Yes, which is orange. And that's what I really want to talk about right now. That is your creative center. And that's also going to correlate with the hormones, because in that is your sex organ. So that is where you create life in that. We're all older, and the creating of life is no longer the primal driving force. Now it's just trying to figure out how to live and balance it. So
How to raise those that you've already created.
how to keep them alive and not throw them from the nest when they're teenagers. But that creative center, one of the best things that you can do, and for so many different reasons, is literally coloring. A kid's coloring book. That's why the mandala coloring books and all of these different things. There's, if you're like me, you can get one that says "fuck it," and you can do that. Very meditative. But doing coloring or doing art, doing creative projects, whether it's music, painting, and like Ken said, you don't have to be good at it, but it is a release, and you go through and you will get better as you go. But that is channeling that energy, the adrenaline. It's connecting you with your inner child. It's honoring that part of you that wants to have fun and just be. If you are a type A personality that plays by the rules, is very, especially in law enforcement, you know your policies and procedures and you do everything to a T. You are probably the type of person that would take a coloring book and color inside the lines. If you want to learn different ways, just go nuts. Go let yourself go outside of the lines every once in a while. It's going to start training your brain to be like, okay, maybe we can relax a little bit. Try it. You can comment back and be like, bullshit, but I promise you it helps a lot. It's very therapeutic. And then just really quick, so your solar plexus is your seat of knowing. It's your power center. That's yellow. And that is your intuition. That's your gut. And when you're feeling a certain way, if you're getting kind of digestive issues, you might, one, probably are ignoring your body. Your body's always trying to talk to you. It's always trying to tell you. When we have pain, it's trying to get your attention that, hey, something's out of alignment. We just live in a society where, oh, I have a headache, I should take a pill. Or I have back pain, I'm going to take a muscle relaxer. I have this, I'm going to go put a Band-Aid on it because I don't know. And the doctors don't know. And not to knock on doctors, there are just like cops, there's good and bad. There are good doctors that know what they're doing. Do your due diligence, do your own research, and don't be too quick to dismiss holistic practices. There's a reason that herbology and essential oils and all of the stuff have been around forever, because plant-based medicine, there are real healing properties. I'm going off on tangents, but this is what I love. And then, we have the rest of the chakras, but I won't get into that. Right now, we're talking about from the solar plexus down, because for men specifically, it's going to help you if you start balancing some of these centers, also contributing into sleep a little bit. So on that note, have you guys, I know Ken and Cory, you've been through my chakra stuff, and I made you guys play with essential oils and tuning forks many moons ago. Badgley, you just wait. Did I bring the tuning forks to the retreat? I don't think I did. I never busted them out. I brought them, but I didn't use them. And that is another thing, since I'm talking about it. Nope, they're not right there. Oh my God. Okay, I'm not going to edit this out. I'm going to let go, but I was looking for my tuning forks, and I don't know what a spider represents, but there's a giant freaking spider on the box that the tuning forks are in. So whatever spiritual shit that is, stupid Arizona problems, we're going to let it live for now. I'll let you guys talk. I'm going to watch it.
Well, it's interesting. The addiction, I kind of have some thoughts on this, but I kind of like to bring up studies because, if you know, kind of the scientific mind, and I also tie into the woo, that there is frequency and vibration. We understand this like at the physics level, that we do operate at certain frequencies, and those frequencies can get off. And trauma actually causes a frequency change within our own body, which is fascinating, because then it's like, oh, there is something to this. But what I want to really tie into is that study. I don't know if you remember or if you heard about it, when they then conducted this with rats, and they put rats in isolation, and they gave them drug water or clean water. In isolation, the rats always chose the drug water. Then they put the rats in social groups. They had the drug water and the clean water in there, and the rats chose the clean water when they were in social groups. And if we would translate this to humans, we're not all rats. Some of us are. That's a joke. But what happens in these cases is, if we are socially isolated for any reason, and this could be, you could be with family, you could friends, but you're isolated, you're alone, you're not validated, you're not heard. This happens, and we end up feeling we need to have an outlet. And so it turns into these types of coping mechanisms. And really, it's just us crying out. We want to feel heard. We want to feel connected. And, this is true even for guys, and guys that have done really awesome stuff like Ken. I'm just hearing your stories. It's like, holy crap, you are way more man than I am. Even if I'm twice your size, you're way more man than I am. And just hearing this, like, it's just so phenomenal to hear all these different stories, but also like, how do we tie this together? And how do we get people out of addiction, out of treatment? And so many times we hear it when people are getting through recovery. It's the connection. It's people. They're not doing it alone. You can't do it alone. And when we're doing it alone, we're
Wrestling your story.
Mechanisms. So yeah,
You're letting it out.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a really good point. So the rat study, I've seen that. So if anybody hasn't seen it, you can Google that and see that they put these rats in it. I think they use heroin, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the community, but that is a really good point, because what's the first thing cops and first responders do when they start feeling stressed out and like they're failing?
And what do we not do?
You isolate and you don't talk about it. You do not tell anybody. And it's funny, because we've been having these conversations, and one of the first questions I'm starting to ask is, if somebody starts bitching about their department not taking care of them, I'm straight up like, did you verbalize that you need help? Did you tell anybody? Because more times than not, no. And it's like, okay, so we need to take that accountability and reach out to community. And again, if it is not, if you are in a department that it's not culturally safe to reach out, there's people like us, and there's a lot of really good people in the wellness space that are really trying to shift the culture, and it is shifting. But again, there are some departments that you're just on your own, but you're not completely, we have the internet. So you are not on your own. You can reach out to our team. You can reach out to these other culturally competent organizations and people to say, hey, I'm struggling and I need to talk about it. What do I do? Just want to throw that out there. But I think that's a really good point too, is that we are lacking community within the law enforcement. There are some departments that are really good, but through the last few years, everybody's so short-staffed and overworked that you don't have time or the energy. I'm going to do a shout out really quick. Right now, up in Washington State, where I'm from, they're dealing with the flooding, and those guys are going on at this point. They've been on for about 2 days with no break. They're tired. Are they going to reach out and go for a beer after this? No, they're going to hopefully go home and sleep. Are they going to actually be able to sleep before they go back? We shall see. So there's a lot. There's so much to unpack there. Ken, what are you kind of thinking? I'm coming to you.
No, I just, listening to Mike and Cory talk about how addiction can start unexpectedly because of an injury on the job, right? There's so much more to this than substance abuse. Being addicted to working out, right? Being addicted to whatever it might be. It's how do you define when it becomes unhealthy? I guess for me is the question. And I don't mean unhealthy in the sense it's not good for you. Alcohol is a poison, right? I get it. But is it a personal definition that you have to come to for yourself? Is it a societal definition that society decides when it's not good for you anymore? Or there's just so much to this. That and the stigma, right, that goes with it as well. Nobody wants to talk about their weaknesses or the problems that they have or the issues that they're dealing with. And trust becomes a big part of that as well. I'm not going to talk to someone at work who may one day be my supervisor and hold it against me. There's just so much that moves in this realm that makes it difficult for people to open up and actually ask for help.
Well, and I want to talk on that too, because here's the thing. And if you are in a relationship, your significant other is going to be the first one that's going to either straight up call you out, or they're going to start picking and what you're going to consider nagging, basically, that, hey, you're doing this too much. And the problem is when you have that significant other that's seeing your truth, that you're not necessarily having the self-awareness and seeing, it's the first thing. What do you guys do? Everybody gets defensive. I'm fine. I'm not the problem. Another honorable mention of an addiction we need to bring up, because I've talked to a lot of spouses that are dealing with this. Video games. Video game checkout. You come home, you worked all day, you're super tired, you have a hard job, you have a hard life. So you come home, you get on your video game, and that's it. And your significant other is sitting there with the kids in the house and taking care of everything else while you're playing Call of Duty or whatever. And if you're playing Call of Duty, the typical thing is you're not typically playing like little kid games, whatever. I don't know what they are these days. You're playing adrenaline type, cop military type games that are keeping you in that. You are never giving your subconscious or your brain a break from the murder, death, kill type visualizations. And it's also desensitizing you too. So now you're out on the street and it's your brain is playing tricks on you. The compassion fatigue is real, but you put in that video game layer too, you feel like you're in a simulation. So I think, do you guys play video games at all?
Yeah, you're completely calling me out, so thank you. No, it's I kind of tie this back into what we were saying is like Ken has mentioned something about, how do we know if it's healthy or unhealthy? And this is one of those things where we have to have this open level of communication with ourselves first and then with our family. So for me, I've learned that, I used to use video games quite a bit the same way all the time. Just decompress, get away. And then I started realizing that I was playing those shooter games and I was already activated. So my sympathetic nervous system is on all the time. And to this day, I still can't see any active shooter videos because I am right there. It's the adrenaline's going and I am full on ready to fight. And it's like, I'm sitting safe in my house. This is ridiculous. Realizing that type of thing. So now for me, what I do is I do is a great decompression. So I actually use video games, but what I plan it out. I do a racing game. I use VR because then I feel like I'm in the car and it feels like I'm somewhere else. And I do one race, 30 minutes, and I'm done. And I tell my family, this is all I'm doing just to do a transition, just something decompress. And now you have me. Didn't used to be that healthy. And that was one of those things, that open communication, to have to understand what is healthy, what works for us, what doesn't. So to point like where I see Ken, like where he was doing his workouts like that, that may actually work for him. Like David Garkins, that works for him, right? I'll argue he probably doesn't because he's breaking himself, but also understand like some people that it can work for them, that they can do 80 hours a week worth of work and they can still operate just fine. Great. You know where you're at. You can continue to do that. And that's where it's so important to have that self-awareness piece. And why addiction's so important is that you have to have self-awareness and you have to speak truth to yourself, because we are the first people we lie to when we're in addiction. We're lying to ourselves the whole time.
On that note too, I don't want to hear this. And so many people do this is when they start, I think it's the first, almost a defense mechanism maybe is why it happens. But when somebody does start taking self-awareness and accountability for their actions, the first thing that comes out of their mouth a lot of times is, well, I'm a piece of shit. Everybody, I'm such a piece of shit. I know, I'm the problem. It's all And this whole like toxic explosion comes out. But here's the thing, if that's where your mindset is, it's not that everybody else is looking at you thinking that you're a piece of shit. That's your inner dialogue that you're talking to yourself. When you see yourself in a mirror, you're like, I'm a piece of shit. I'm a piece of shit. And then you think everybody else thinks you're a piece of shit. And the problem is the subconscious doesn't want to make you a liar. So if you're continuing to say, I'm a piece of shit, then you're going to start acting like a piece of shit, because that is what you're creating, that belief, and your body's going to make it like, okay, well, we're going to do things that are shitty. And we hurt people unintentionally, but you get into this, it's another addiction. Self-loathing, guilt, shame, all of this low vibration stuff is also feeding into that addiction. So I love that you had a solution for the game. So if somebody is doing video games and you're checking out, put a time limit. I mean, put kid locks on your thing, have it shut down, let your wife or husband or whoever it is come in and turn it off. And don't get mad, because if you're getting mad when that video game goes off, guess what? That's withdrawal. You are addicted. Period. End of story. So I don't even know. I should probably look into it, but I'm assuming there are, because there's groups or everything, but I'm guessing there's video game addiction groups out there.
I'm sure there are.
If you know of any, send them my way, because I have no idea. I'm assuming there are. I don't know if there's first responder specific ones. Idea for somebody to start it. So much. So Cory, you've been quiet for a minute. First of all, I haven't talked to you for a minute. You had your foot surgery, right, a while ago. Are you good with that?
Yep. And really, it was a longer healing process. I kind of went in thinking this will be quick and I'll be back on my feet, but yeah, it took quite a lot longer to heal than I thought because of age. But yeah, things are good. So
How was your mindset from when you were dealing with your? Well, so I know I'm going to walk it back a little bit. You were very fortunate because you had already fixed your mindset before you were involved in your shooting. You had already decided to get healthy and you had already gotten sober at that point, right?
yep, correct.
And then you had your shooting, and so you were able to heal better, quicker, because your mindset, you'd already been working on it. So
Absolutely.
between that window of your shooting and your alcoholism, what shifted for you to get ready to have that mindset shift?
It was really, really for me at the beginning of the day, right? That's where it needs to start. My health was failing. My weight was out of control. But everything was really spiraling out of control. And it was trying to look in the mirror and say that this really is a problem, financially, work, family, and just seeing how I did not want to be that person. So I took the time and the investment and I quit. Or I quit drinking, and just started working on myself. And started with, talking to my therapist and then exercise, but being open about it and being open about it with my coworkers and my supervisors about what I was going with. One of the bigger things I kind of credit it with is I worked extra duty at the church for the town I worked in. And it was a job that I used to dread going to, probably because I was hungover. But I credit a lot of my sober being to some of the old ladies in that church. They were my biggest fans. So I remember I had missed a few Sundays when I was in the hospital for drinking too much, and they wanted to know where I was, and I was open about it, and they were probably some of my biggest supporters. So being open about it, sharing your journey, letting you have wins and sharing it, and let people cheer you along the way.
No, I love that.
So, yeah.
With Badgley, with the opiates, so you just quit cold turkey and you had that strength. Do you talk to people, or do you mentor anybody that is going through it, or do you have any experience with like NA or anything like that?
I don't
No.
actually.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking to me. My bad.
But I apologize. No, actually, I don't have that experience. I haven't done a lot of mentoring with that. So it's just kind of one of those things. I found what worked for me and just tried to find a way through. And I will credit a lot of the military training, in the sense that once I found myself in hell, you just keep going. And I realized that the only way out was through. And so in the midst of that addiction, at one point, like I almost gave in and just was like, I'm going to do it again. And I thank God I didn't. And that was that decision. The military came through, just like, nope, get it out.
Well, for the audience too, so well, we had talked about methadone, and I want to talk about methadone for a second. If you are dealing with either your own addiction or somebody that's in big addiction, just do your research before. Methadone has its place. I learned the hard way with methadone clinics that it wasn't the resource that I thought it was going to be. And especially if you have an addict that is still using, even if they're telling you that they're not using, and then they're going to the methadone clinic and then they're still using, it gets really ugly. And I don't want to go too much into my past with that, but it was brutal to watch. And the thing with addiction is when you're dealing with somebody who is in active addiction, especially with drugs, alcohol too, but depending on the level of drugs, the opiates, oxys are huge. Fentanyl's a thing now, if you can even take it and stay alive. All meth, everything. Going from a spiritual standpoint, from what I've experienced and what I've seen, I believe that those kinds of drugs turns the soul black. I had people that I knew better than anything look through me. They did not see me. I could not see them. There was just darkness everywhere. It was a human figure in front of me, and the soul was, the only way I can describe it was tar, just oozing dark black tar that did not care about anything. It's really hard if you're a loved one watching somebody that you love go through addiction. It's so painful. So go to support groups, Al-Anon, the things that are, if you cannot control somebody else, you cannot get somebody help that doesn't want to help themselves. Addiction is a sickness in itself. You cannot save somebody else, but you can take care of yourself. So make sure that you are supported if you're that family member watching. Boundaries. It's so hard. I've seen a lot of people give a lot of money to just trying to make sure that their person's getting their fix so that they're okay or whatever that is. And that's enabling. That's not love. It's enabling. So get support for that as well. I wanted to go back to sleep really quick too. I'm kind of bouncing all over, but there's so much. I want to, you're my team, so I'm gonna play with you guys. I want to try some different things, but will you guys walk me through your nighttime routine before you're going into to go to sleep, if you're willing? Like, what do you do before bed? Well, besides drinking.
I'm very consistent. I'm almost always in bed between 9 and 9:15. I don't stay up late. I never have. I'm an early riser, not as early as my wife. She's usually up around 4:30 or 5. I'm up between 5:30 and 6. Um, but yeah, there is no real routine. It's time to go to bed, 9 o'clock, turn the TV off. I go upstairs, get into my night clothes, turn on the bed heater, climb in and put the head on the pillow. And within, like I said, 15, 20 minutes, next thing I know, it's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, or it's 5:30 and the sun's coming up. So there really isn't a routine that I rely on. Um, on those evenings or those nights when I don't drink for whatever reason, either conscious choice, I had an event that I was attending, on vacation, whatever it might be. Still no real routine. I make sure that the lights are turned off. I wasn't looking at the cell phone right up to the moment I was going to bed. I will sometimes watch TV to try and help me fall asleep watching a boring television show. But that's probably the extent of a routine for me.
Okay. But you have a TV in the bedroom,
Yes,
and do you sleep with your phone next to your head?
not anymore.
Okay.
When I was on the job, absolutely.
Okay.
2 phones.
2 phones. Okay. So I'm gonna unpack all of that. But let's see. All right. What are really quick before I move on, what are the kind of thoughts that are running through your head when you're trying to go to sleep?
So that was a huge issue when I was on the job. I was constantly thinking about work. What do I have to do tomorrow? What went wrong today? What do I have to have go right tomorrow? All of those kind of things, they would just constantly run like a repeating wheel, right, in my subconscious, and I just could never turn that off. Since I've retired, I don't have any of that anymore. So there is nothing conscious that I'm thinking about when it's time to go to sleep. It's just close your eyes and I've tried meditation, right? Concentrating on a sound that you hear, whether it's birds chirping outside the window or the sound of your heater or your air conditioning running, focusing on that. I've tried the white noise and I've tried the noise generators. Um, Really, nothing seems to be all that helpful. And like I said earlier, I've never been the guy who's going to go to Ambien. And I know it sounds counterintuitive. Alcohol's fine, but not Ambien because that's bad. Um, it just that's kind of how I've evolved to where I am sitting here today. And it was nothing what I was like when I started the profession. I had no problem going to sleep when I was a young man, 22, 23 years old.
Well, and the alcohol too, I have a family member who was body keeps score, yes. I have a family member that was served in Vietnam, exposed to Agent Orange, and, they're in their 80s now, but they have to drink a couple drinks before bed because they have night terrors, and it all comes back up. And so, of course, he's older, so I've tried to get him to go to, vet support groups and stuff, and he's old school, so he's not going to, and that's his thing, but when he doesn't drink, he has those night terrors. So there's no judgment for me. I understand. Badgley, what about you? What's your nighttime?
I have a pretty standard routine, but the time I go to bed, it always varies because I have a kid who's, getting into the teenage years and there's lots of activity things going on. And so right now what I usually do is I have my routine, obviously do my prep for bed. And then when I go to bed, I kind of have that practice. There is a TV in the room, but I very, very rarely ever use it and definitely don't have it on while I'm sleeping. But instead I use my phone, which is definitely so much better. Joking. And what I'll do is I usually turn it upside down and then I'll play something like, I'm really into science stuff. I love that stuff and philosophy, psychology. So one of my favorite shows is the Y-Files. If you've not seen it, love it on YouTube. It's phenomenal. But then I dive into like Astrum and those types of things. And it's kind of that slow monotone voices talking about science. And it usually puts me to sleep. Usually, but then I'm up pretty quickly. Usually I'm up at 2 or 3 in the morning. And it's been really bad because we have daylight savings up here in Washington because we're not smart like Arizona. And my circadian rhythm every winter is completely jacked. And I don't know if anybody else feels that, but literally when the time changed, it ruined my sleep schedule. I was fine up until that point, and since then I'm getting about 3 or 4 hours of sleep.
Cool.
So I do a very intentional practice prior to bed to make sure I'm ready. And I do somatic exercises. And if I'm feeling really activated, I'll do yoga. One of the big things I'll do is as well is I'll make sure I get active exercise in. So I'm lifting or some kind of cardio at some point in the day because I want myself physically exhausted And I know there's going to be a 2 to 3 week period where I'm not going to get sleep and I'm going to be it's going to suck. But once I finally break through that barrier, my body finally goes, you need the rest, and it starts to finally do it. But I've noticed that anytime I try to do any sleep repair, it takes forever. It's one of those things where we think that we can fix it in 2 to 3 weeks. And it's like, no, this is a 6 month process at a minimum. Our bodies take a long time to heal and adapt to that change, and it sucks. At least that's what I found.
No, thank you. Cory, what about you?
Recently, it's walking the dog around the block, maybe 30 minutes before bed. Um, and then just a little stretch or something. I'll lay on the floor and I stretch, and I might lay there and go through my phone for a few and get that out of my system. But leaving the phone on the other side of the room, and just some kind of decompression, whether it's that walk or a stretch. Sometimes I'll watch a show, but it has to be one of those boring shows. So, but yeah, the big thing lately has just been some kind of light exercise.
So all of you guys have TVs in your room?
No,
You don't have TV. Okay.
no, I'll do it in the other room. I'll kind of wind down with the show in the other room.
All right. So I'm not being a hypocrite because I literally, because the kids are getting older and I have a smaller house. So I did finally put a TV in my room for the first time in like 15 years. Because I'm like, I'm tired. I just leave me alone. However, just so for you guys and for the audience tuning in, there are little things that may or may not be impacting your quality of sleep. Having a TV in a room, having your phone next to your head, it's frequency, like Mike was talking. Everything is energy. Everything has a vibration. And so the TV and the phone, they are having electromagnetic field going out. And so there's all these waves going through. Your room is not sleeping. There's energy going. So you could unplug your TV so that it kind of helps a little bit. Now, sleeping with your phone next to your head, here's the thing. We all, myself included, have control issues. And if you are trying to be prepared, I'm pretty sure everybody has a gun in their nightstand or under their mattress or whatever. We all have protection right there. And if something happens in the middle of the night, we want to be able to grab our phones. So I will say the reality of moving your phone, having it right next to your head is not good, just so you guys know. So at least move it to the other side of your nightstand or somewhere that it's not right in your mindset space. Give it a little bit of distance there will help you guys out. I know if you can move it into a different room. And I'm not talking about just putting it on silent. I turn my ringer off, but I still have the phone there if I need to grab it. So if you can keep it in a different room, that's ideal. However, just put it farther away from your head. We all do doom scroll. The problem with the TV, the computers, the screen is it's creating false light and it is throwing off your senses. So usually, typically, if you turn the screen off, now your whole brain pattern needs like an hour to understand that, oh, it's not daytime, it's now nighttime. And there was no gradual decline. It was just off. So now you're going to sit there being like, I'm awake. So if you can turn your phones off and not scroll or video games or whatever the screen is, if you can cut the screen time at least an hour before you're actually trying to go to sleep, it may or may not help you. Try it. The other thing that you can do too is being mindful of your thoughts when you're going to hit the pillow. If you are still active, especially, or if you have a lot of things that you're thinking about and processing, you can imagine, and it sounds a little silly, but use your childlike imagination. And you're like, okay, I have all of these things that I have to do. I have to all of that. Okay, I'm going to take all of that. And you can even put a physical box on your nightstand, or you can just imagine it. I'm going to put all of this stuff in this box over here, and I can pick it up when I wake up in the morning. And you visualize putting it in the box, putting the lid on it. Maybe you're locking it, setting it to the side, but visualizing taking all of that stuff and setting it down, knowing full well that you can pick it up in the morning and resume what you need to do. If you're super religious, you can put it up to God and say, God, hold on to this until the morning. Okay. Little things like that. One of the things that I do is I've trained my brain. So as soon as I hit the pillow, my brain immediately, the first thought that goes through my mind is, I'm so thankful. I am so thankful that I made it to bed. I'm so thankful that I made it through the day, that, I was safe, my family's safe, and I start practicing gratitude. I know I talk about that in a lot of episodes, but there's something to it. I practice gratitude a lot. Does that mean I just fall asleep? No. But that means that I'm not doom scrolling in my brain of all of the worst case scenarios of what could be. There are days that I do that. If Chris isn't at the house, what would I do if somebody broke in? What would I do? Da, da, da. And there is the defense mechanism, protective thoughts that they can serve you well, as long, again, you're not getting addicted to it. If you're going to the worst case scenario every single night of everything that could go wrong will go wrong, that is not good. Okay. So you need to be like, that's a thought. I'm safe. I'm protected by the armor of God, angels of light, whatever it is that you say to know you're safe so that you can relax. Those are little tiny things. I'm sure some people are going to be like, but maybe somebody try something. Have you guys found anything throughout your careers that actually has worked to slow, maybe not the sleep part, but slow some of the thoughts down? Like what?
Yeah, somatic exercises. It's regulating the nervous system. A lot of times we are activated, and our sympathetic nervous system is saying, "Hey, we're ready for fight or flight. We're good to go." And part of that is just training. If those are the decisions, the process we're always doing in those environments, then we're going to get really good at it. And then we have to be intentional to try and do the other side. So yeah, I do. It's literally combat breathing. I will do that when I'm really activated and I'm feeling it. I'll just sit there and I'll just breathe, and I'll do it for 3 minutes to 5 minutes to make sure it just come down, and it works. And that's why I think the yoga is also so beneficial, because I'm also doing intentional breathing practices while doing it. And I've really, really felt like that just reoxygenates the blood, helps the forebrain kick on, gets me out of the lizard brain mode. It's not perfect. It doesn't work every time, but it helps.
Thank you. Breathing, huge. Slow breathing. So here's the thing. If you're going to do breath work at night, especially, do not be like, you're going to throw yourself into a panic attack, right? You need to do slow, methodical belly breathing. Exhale very slowly. If you have thoughts coming in, a lot of people think meditation is being free of thought. We're not monks on the side of a hill in Tibet, okay? To be free of thought takes a lot of practice, and you can get there. If you're beginning, it's just to be mindful of the thoughts you're having. So if you have negative thought come in, that's a thought, breathe it out. You have another thought, stress comes in, that's a thought, breathe it out. You just are practicing self-awareness and releasing the thought of that's a thought, because that's all it is. In that moment, it's just a thought. It's not happening to you. If it's a PTS, traumatic flashback, that's a thought. Look around. Again, practice gratitude, breathing, coming into the present, looking around at your surroundings. Yoga is huge, but again, this is not gym yoga. I hated yoga for so long, because when I would go to yoga, I thought it was supposed to be relaxing, and I'd go to like 24-hour fitness or whatever with somebody that got their training certificate online, and they're like, downward dog. Okay, cobra, breathe, go. I'm like, no. Slow, methodical stretching, breathing, and just focusing can help you absolutely. I had one more thing I wanted to throw in there, but now I'm totally blanking. Okay, moving on, because it'll come back to me. I was doing too much breathing, got too excited. Meditation, hypnosis recordings can also help you. Crap, it was important too. Anyway, moving on. Cory, what you got? What helps you slow things down?
Oh, really? Breathing's a big one too. But it is I think I see it as making sure my area is safe. I go out and walk the dog, it's calm, lock the house, check the kids, and just kind of going through that routine of everything's safe.
You
Yeah.
keep going, but you got it back for me.
Yeah. And then, sitting there for a second and just unwinding in my mind with the deep breathing. So something that I learned from you, and it's been very helpful lately. So I've been doing cold plunge just in my pool. And that's the only thing that gets me through that is the breathing. So
nice. I know cold plunge. We've been talking about that, and I want to, because I have lower back pain, so I want to try to get into it, but I don't like cold at all. So we'll see. But everybody that does it swears by it. But safety, that was my point. Thank you very much. So here's the thing for our audience. If you're newer into law enforcement, you're still learning, and you're going to be thinking, and it's just part of it. You're trying to figure out how to do the job and remember everything, and you're going to be running stuff. So again, putting it in a box, picking it up tomorrow will help you. For those that are seasoned pros, you've been in the military, you have been through you are good. Ken, you know how to shoot, right? You're pretty confident with your shooting. A little bit. Same with you guys. You're all confident. Now, Let me ask
Absolutely.
you this. In the waking logical hours, if shit were to hit the fan, do you trust yourself that you would respond accordingly?
Absolutely. We had a plan.
Okay. So you don't need to be on for the audience. If you know how to do your job, you know how to do your job well, you know how to protect, you know how to react. You don't need to be proactively reacting to something that's not happening. Fear, false evidence appearing real. The other two acronyms are face everything and rise, fuck everything and run. So if you have somebody, depending on the situation, but for the most part, false evidence appearing real is you're running scenarios in your mind like I do. What if somebody breaks in? What if this happens? Da, da, da. False evidence appearing real. Okay. If you are trained and you know that in the day, the waking hours, you are fully capable of responding on moment's notice and doing it correctly, then trust yourself that if something were to happen at night, you would react and respond accordingly, and trust that you are good enough at what you're doing that you can relax for a minute and allow your body to recalibrate.
Agree. Could say anything more? That's great.
Okay, mic drop. Thank you. Well, and I think because that's not just with sleep too. I say that I usually use that analogy for those that go into public places that cannot sit with their back to the door. And I learned that with Chris when we first started dating, because my dad was a do not sit to the back to the door. He always had to be scanning the room, was always on. As a child, I knew that that's how it was. And then when I started dating Chris, the first time we went out somewhere, I went to give him that seat and he's like, I don't care. And I was like, what? You're a cop. What do you mean you don't care? He's like, if shit happens, I'm going to handle it. I don't need to be scanning. And I was like, for me, I was mind blown. I was like, that's a thing. But then he explained, he's like, he was confident enough in his skills. He did not need to be on. And I was like, wow, okay. So I just share that out for those that need to hear that.
Don't feel
Awesome.
confident in your skills. Do more
And
training.
more
Train
training. Reach out, talk. And if you have all the training and you still don't feel confident in your skills, that's where law enforcement coaching comes in and we can help you. Shameless plug. Well, okay, we are rounding around the corner for time, so I want to be mindful of your guys' time and the listeners, but it was a great topic. We talked on a lot of different areas. Did we provide the audience with hard and fast solutions? No, because sleep is it's a whole thing and addiction is a whole thing. But what I will say is just like we have these conversations and we learn something from each other, for the audience listening, if you have found something that actually works, as I say that, we'll do a month on ketamine and those kinds of treatments, because that is something that's effective. We're not going to talk about it right now. Ketamine is working for people. We'll put a pin, circle back in a couple months. But besides that, if you're finding holistic routes that are helping you, please, by all means, share what those are working. If you want to come on as a guest, you're welcome to be here for that. As always, I would like to go around, and if somebody were to just tune in to the last little part of this, what is your takeaway advice to our audience? Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first. I recognize first and foremost how important sleep is, to not only your mental health, your physical health, but your ability to perform when you are switched on, to make good decisions. If you're exhausted because you're not getting good sleep, odds are you're going to make a poor decision. You're going to misinterpret an environment. You're going to make a bad decision based on false views or whatever it might be. So sleep is crucial. And if you're not getting good sleep, there's the temptation to self-medicate to get there. There's the temptation to turn to prescription drugs to get there. Just realize that there are consequences to those choices if you don't try other methods first, like the holistic, the breathing, the things that we've talked about here that have worked for some. It may very well work for you. Key is keep looking till you find it. Don't give up.
Yeah, don't give up. You got to make time for yourself before you can make time for others. So find out what works for you. And sometimes it's so basic and so simple in front of you, like the breathing, that'll really make you open your eyes. So look for the root cause, try to change it, and fill it with something positive.
Mine's going to sound probably a little weird. Lower your expectations. And while this sounds like something that is mean, it's also wisdom. Don't expect so much of yourself. Don't expect that you're going to be a perfect performer. You're going to be at 100% every single day, because what you're doing when you're putting yourself in those positions is you're never going to live up to it. And then it attacks your identity. You feel isolated. You feel like you're not performing. And then you can turn to coping mechanisms. So what I mean by that is just identify where you're at. Some days you're going to have it. Some days you're not. Ask for help. Be honest with yourself first and foremost, and be honest with others. And that's where courage is. It lies in vulnerability. It's saying, hey, I need help today. And that's okay. And if we're in that point, before we get to addiction, you'll likely never get into addiction. But it's when we don't ask for help and we hide it down, we shove it down, thinking we're going to be good. We've got it. We don't. We need teams. All the tier 1 operators out there, they don't do lone wolf stuff. We operate as teams. I say we. That wasn't me. I was the industry guy. But understand that, like, this is really, we have to do this together as a community.
Well, I love that too. And Ken, I'm going to kind of use you as the guinea pig for this. So lowering the expectations when it comes to sleep. So if right now you're not sleeping, or you're getting 2 to 3 hours and you're like, I want to improve my sleep, your thoughts create a lot of it. So if you're like, I can't sleep, so I'm going to go on a whole tangent. Hold on. All right. So
Well, I have to go get my kids here. So I apologize.
thanks, Cory. That's fine. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry
I'm
to
going to go on a
interrupt.
tangent and you can watch later.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Good to talk to y'all.
Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
But if you remove no, don't, and can't from your vocabulary, because if you're like, I can't sleep, then the universe is going to hear, okay, well, you can't sleep. So here you go. So, and I say that, I teach this all the time. If you go to Google and you put in, I don't want to look at houses, what's going to pop up? Houses. Okay. You have to be specific when you're putting your order out to the universe or God or whatever. If you say, I can't sleep, then it's going to be like, can't sleep. But what do you want? I want to have a full night's sleep. I want to rest well. I want to, no matter how many hours of sleep, I want to wake feeling fully rested. I want my body to heal. So you focus on what you do want, and then eventually your brain's going to kick on, your subconscious is going to kick on, and it's going to give you a little bit more of what you want. Now, if you have not gotten a full 6 to 8 hours of sleep and who knows how long, the odds of like, I'm going to go to sleep and I'm going to have a full night's sleep tonight. Don't set yourself up to fail, right? Because then you're like, fuck, I only got 4 hours of sleep. Bah. Lower the expectations. So if you're only getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep and you wake up and you got 3 hours and 15 minutes, that's a win. You got a little bit more sleep. Celebrate it. I'm thankful that I got 15 minutes more. That felt good. I'd like to do it again. And you focus on the little wins and the positive, and you do that consistently, and you thank your body and your subconscious and all of the stuff that's going into it to move that needle in 5-minute increments. Eventually, maybe you'll get up to 5 hours of sleep because you retrain your body and your mind. Okay. You guys get to try that and tell me how that works. I can't wait. Now that I put the seed out there for our June topic, we got 6 months to get you guys sleeping. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. But thank you guys all for listening, for the audience tuning in. Again, if you have anything you want to share with the conversation, likes, follow, subscribe, do all the things. And until next week.